Everyone, this is Tim Brown and welcome to my Apple Podcast. Today I want to review another video editor because you know how much I love video editors for iOS. And I want to bring you to the attention of this one application that you probably have never seen or have ever heard of. And it's a shame too because the app actually has a ton of features that I think if you're something who even remotely likes video editing, you will really enjoy this app. I'm going to try and at least cover as many of the basic features as possible so that you can at least have a sense of what you can do with this pretty impressive little app. So you're looking at the basic interface here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just go over a few things. So on the top left-hand corner, you can see a plus symbol. That's what you use to start a new project. I'm not going to start one yet. Let me go over a few of the other features. So here you can actually send feedback to the developer. Here is the Wi-Fi icon or symbol. This enables you to actually connect to your computer if you choose to import media into your project that way. To the bottom right, you see there's another question mark icon here, or not another one, but a question mark icon that can answer some basic questions about the app. There is a brush icon that is designed to clear any kind of cache you may have. And in the bottom left is a button that enables you to connect to content through iTunes file sharing. That was a standard way of connecting to media before iCloud, when you would use the USB cable to attach your iOS device to iTunes. You can still do this, and you can still import and retrieve content from your computer via iTunes file sharing. I'm going to begin by clicking on the plus symbol in the top left corner, and I'm just going to go with this name by default, and then click Create to start a new project. And as you can see here, it bumps me up to the Settings menu, where you can see you can go through and choose your aspect ratio. You can choose the output quality, the output size. You can also choose to change the background color, auto adjust time after edit, and then there's a little option at the bottom, an option that I'm actually using right now, and that is enable screen recording showing the red circle. So you'll notice that everything that I'm pressing on with my finger records a red dot that is appearing. The app basically enables you to record your screen with this red dot for tutorial purposes. So it's actually developing this feature with the idea that Apple now has this iOS recording feature built into the iOS experience. And so developers are just capitalizing on this feature, which I think is really cool, which is why I'm using it. Okay, so now once you go into the project editing mode, you see here you also provided with another pop-up menu. And basically it's the developer's way of just kind of getting you going off the ground fast. But I'm going to get rid of this for a moment and just show you that manually you bring up this menu by just simply hitting the plus symbol like so. Let's go ahead and bring in some content, and I can begin to go over the features further as I begin to bring some content in. So let's start with, say, a photo. And I'm going to use this photo for one of my background images, I guess. Let's see what will work. Let me just go ahead and just bring in this simple sort of desktop image that actually I got from the Mac desktop. This is a standard Mac desktop image that I'm going to use here in this case as my background. And as you can see, it also went into editing mode automatically as well. But I'm going to go ahead and quit out of this by selecting the arrow button in the top right so that I can show you manually how you access that. So in this case, if I wanted to go back to that menu, I'll double tap on my media that's in the timeline down below, just double tap, and it brings that menu open. That's typically how you get to it. So let's go ahead and walk through some of the features here. I'm going to try and cover every icon that's on this little menu bar here, so you can kind of get a sense of what we got inside this app. You see the trash can on the far left. That's pretty straightforward, right? You know, if you hit a trash can, you're probably going to delete something. Sure enough, that takes my content right out. But there is a back arrow button here, so that's going to enable me to bring that right back in. Double tap once again to go back into editing mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to skip a few icons because I want to extend the length of this clip, which is coming into my project at 4 seconds by default. And I'm going to select this little clock icon here. And I'm going to increase the length of this photo to 12 seconds. And as you can see, it now becomes a lot longer on the timeline here. So let's go ahead and walk through some of the features, some of the basic ones. So next to the trash can is the adjustment tool. Seems pretty straightforward, right? It's a sort of sun icon that is part white, part black, indicating that you can control the brightness and the darkness. And sure enough, it's brightness, it's contrast, and it's also saturation. Okay, I'm now going to move down the menu here, and I'm going to select the resize icon because I want to make further adjustments to my background image. Basically, I want to enlarge it so that it covers the entire space of my 16:9 aspect ratio. You can do this two ways. You can use the slider to increase it, or you can use the plus and minus buttons to make finer adjustments. Okay, great. That's exactly how I want it. Now let's go back, and I want to show you this really cool option. It's a gradient option. This usually only comes with photo editors. You rarely see it with a video editor. And so here you can see along the bottom, you have 6 different options for gradients. You have a circular gradient, and here you have the image appear in the center, with a fade along the edges so that it's transparent. You can also use a square gradient as well, so that the edges around the squared out image edges are transparent. And you can continue playing around with all the different options. Also, you can use the bar to make further adjustments to how you want the gradient to appear. Now, if you do it the way I'm doing it now, I actually have 3 layers of gradients. And you have to remember, if you're going to be experimenting with the different gradients, to delete them as you go along. Like, for example, if I like the rectangular one, but I don't want the circular ones or the square ones underneath to appear, I have to select them and then use this little dotted menu up here to get rid of them. So just keep that in mind if you plan to have some fun with the gradients. I'm going to actually go ahead and delete this one as well, so you can see the circular effect, which is what I like the best. Actually, what I want to do is play around with this little feature a little bit more by juxtaposing how this gradient works with layers that are above or below. So I'm actually going to just cancel out of this one for a moment, and let's go to our library. I'm going to hit the check symbol in the top right and bring in another layer. In this case, I'm going to bring in a video. I found this really cool video online. It was free. It's a nice little video of a duck on the water. And I kind of like this effect, so I want to bring this in as an example of how you can really take advantage of this gradient feature. So what I'm going to do is first go back to that resize icon that I showed you earlier. I'm going to expand this little duck video here, like so. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to apply that gradient feature to the duck video. So this can be applied to photos and videos. So here I'm going to go ahead and choose that circular gradient because that's my favorite. And I'm going to move it around to where I want it to be. Make any kind of further adjustments. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit the check button to get out of that. And as you can see, now the video that I just imported now has that circular gradient that is now bringing in that background image that I put in there initially. And it really works well with this particular image. And this is a pretty simple solution to this, but as you can see, you can be quite creative and really add some depth and creativity to how you use layers, especially if you're planning to use this really cool gradient option. So So let's go ahead and go back up into our editing mode because I want to show you some more features here. So I just showed you the gradient tool, really cool. There is the timeline feature, of course, where you can adjust the length of your clips. I set this one to 12 seconds. There's also another option for splitting a clip, pretty straightforward. I don't really have a need to do that right now, but let's just say that's what I wanted to do. If I scroll to the middle of my timeline here, I can hit this split button and it will actually split that clip that you've selected. I don't want to do that, but I just wanted to quickly show you that this is indeed an option. I'm going to go ahead and hit the back arrow to undo that and go back up into the editing mode once again. So next to the splitting icon is this little double arrow icon, which I really like. So when you select this, you'll see that this is a transition effect. The double arrows simply mean that you can set an in transition and an out transition. So let's try and do that, not with the background image, but with the duck video, which is on the top layer, but showed on the timeline as the bottom layer. So it's kind of has a reverse logic if you want to think about it that way. Anything that is supposed to be on top is actually on the timeline on the bottom. And there's some desktop editors that function like this as well. So don't let that confuse you. So I'm going to double tap on the duck video. And I'm going to tap on the double arrow icon. And I'm going to add an intro transition effect. Let's see here. What looks really good? I like this one here. The one that is larger and then expands and gets smaller as it comes in. That looks pretty cool. Now you can also make an adjustment to how smooth or how fast or slow you want the transition to be. So you can use this slider to increase the seconds. I'm going to move that up to 2 seconds and see if that makes it a little smoother. I'm going to hit the check symbol to go back to the main timeline. And I'm going to play this, and my little vignette or gradient image of the duck is now going to slide in from the left-hand side, or actually going to expand inwards into my picture. Pretty cool. Kind of creepy, but cool. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of how the transition effect works. I'm not going to do an out transition because the clip's too long, but you kind of get the idea. Next to this transition effect is the rotation tool. So you can use this manually to rotate your image like so. Or you can just use the plus and minus buttons to do the same thing in case you want to fine-tune your adjustments. The next one is the resize button, so I just showed you that. So we're going to go ahead and skip to the magic wand tool. This is really cool. There's actually another app that also edits photos and videos that has this exact same user interface. This must be a very stylized template that some developers like to use. I like the fact that it's in a video editor though. I mean, this is really, really cool. And if you haven't seen this interface before, it comes in layers, and the layers allow you to create different types of effects. So the top layer in this case allows you to create different artistic kinds of effects. So you can add a vignette. That's pretty straightforward, but you can also add a blur, or you can add a mosaic image. You can add it so that it has a nice sketch look and so forth. So it has, like I said before, artistic types of effects that you can add. You can go through the whole bar. As you can see here, there's a nice menu of options here that are available, including this little crosshatch. Pretty nice. Now, in addition to these effects, you can also add these cool filters along the bottom to add a nice little mood to your image. I'm going to go back actually and just get rid of the artistic effects up above and just go and play around with the filters so you can just see more clearly what this bottom option can do for you. So between the filters and the artistic effects, you can really do some pretty cool things with this magic wand tool option. Just something to keep in mind. Again, this app has features that you do not typically see in video editors. You may find them in photo editors, but rarely in video editors. So it's really interesting that this developer has decided to incorporate facets of both these types of apps, photo editors and video editors. Right next to the Magic Wand tool is an icon that looks like a wave. And that wave basically indicates that there is some motion that you can add to your project. In this case, it functions sort of like keyframes. So each time you want to build an emotion, you tap on the plus symbol to the left here, and it adds what might be equivalent to a keyframe. So in this case, if you look at the blue icons here along the bottom, these basically they represent different types of motions or motion points that you can add to your timeline. So by default is the size option. So if I was to go with size, and I move my timeline over just a tad, and let's say I wanted the duck to become larger once it got to this point in the timeline, I open up my motion icon once again, hit the plus symbol, and it now adds another keyframe. And at this point, I can now choose to enlarge or reduce the image. So in this case, I'm actually going to enlarge it. Great. Hit done. And I'm going to hit the check symbol up the top here. And so by now, it should play the transition that I added, which sort of starts out large and then comes in smaller as it comes into the picture. And then you're also going to see a motion effect. So let's go ahead and play this back. Cool. So I had that intro transition where it started out larger and then came in. And then I used the resize animation using motion keys to then bring it back up in size. Now we go back to the motion keyframe option here. You can see that you can apply this same thing to rotation, to transparency, as well as to sound. So if you want the sound to get louder or softer, you can do that with these 4 different functions here using motion points, or what I call keyframes. Okay, next to the motion icon, you will find scissors. Scissors, pretty straightforward. A lot of these icons are pretty simple and direct in terms of what it is, what function it is that they embody or represent. Trim is pretty straightforward. You use the sliders to trim your clip. That's always a nice option to have. Next to the scissors icon is an ABC icon. This one is actually a little tricky. I honestly couldn't figure out what this was. When I first looked at it, I thought it might be used for text. But when you tap on it, you'll see that no, it's not for adding text. It's for adding animations. And as you can see, the interface is very similar to text as far as the little button thumbnail options that you have here. Looks just like the transition option, only in this case it's for animation, and it's for continuous looping animation. So you see the one in the center where the ABC is sort of rotating like a wheel. If I was to choose and add that to, say, this duck video, it will loop like that continuously through the video. Let's go ahead. The seconds above basically indicates how fast or slow you want that animation to go. And so let me just play that back so you can see what that looks like. So this is getting really complicated now because I have a transition at the beginning. I have that motion animation that rescales the image once again. And you're also going to see the scenario where everything is just rotating continuously through the timeline. So it's going to be pretty kind of crazy here when I play this back. Pretty cool though. You have to admit that's pretty cool. Okay, next is a crop tool. This is pretty straightforward. You can crop your image freestyle, or you can use the templates down below to crop any image that you have selected. Next to the crop tool is the picture icon. When you select this, it will send a snapshot to your camera roll, but also give you an option to use that same snapshot and incorporate it or add it to a new track on the timeline. I'm going to say no for the moment. Next to the musical note icon is a palette icon, and this enables you to play around with color splashes. This is very common with photo editors, rarely found with video editors, and as you can see, you have 6 options for doing so. So basically, with color 1 option selected, I can press and long hold on my video or anywhere in the video to select a color, and then you can move that color out if you choose to do so. You can also have some flexibility too with how much of this color you want. Down below, you can control the range of that color by hitting the plus and minus symbol if you want to make some adjustments or just sort of fine-tune how you want that color splash to appear. Again, a really nice option to have, just enhances your creativity. Never seen this in a video editor. I've never actually even thought that this was possible with a video editor, so I'd have to spend some time playing around with this feature some more, maybe with desktop editors, but rarely on the iPad. Next to the palette icon is the horizontal vertical flip icon. This is pretty straightforward, just enables you to flip your video back and forth, vertical as well as horizontally. Here's an audio icon. The audio icon brings up that same motion point menu that you saw before when we selected the motion icon earlier. Basically, you get the same menu, except that now it is actually designating audio as your primary motion point. Why are they duplicating that twice? I'm not quite sure. Maybe there's something there I'm not figuring out. Next to the audio icon is a picture icon. Here you can actually add a shape template over top of your image. This option probably would not be very effective for me right now because I already have this circular gradient that is shaping the image of my duck video, but you know, I could maybe add this flower icon shape if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and leave that there. Next to the picture icon is Chroma key. Now this is what I really like the most. If those of you who are familiar with my episodes, I like video editors, but I especially like Chroma keys. And the Chroma key feature in this app is actually pretty darn good. So actually what I'm going to do to demonstrate this is I'm going to get out of this editing mode for the moment. But before I do that, I think I'm going to take my duck video and just kind of move it over to the side here, like so. And I'm going to bring in a video of myself in which I green screened myself, and I'm going to put myself to the right side of this image so I can demonstrate how the Chroma key feature works. Hit the plus symbol down below, and I'm going to bring in this video into my project. Hopefully it's still in here. I did a little video of myself. I think this is it here. I'm going to bring this in down below. Again, it's the bottom layer, but it's actually the top. And I'm going to press the resize icon that I showed you earlier, and I'm going to bring this up a bit so that I'm a little larger. And I'm here in the bottom right corner, if I remember correctly. And I'm going to go ahead and move down the timeline here just so I can get to the point where I come into the picture. There I am. And maybe I'll resize this again so that it's a little smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and just put myself over here to the far right. And basically what I want to do is get this green color behind me out of there so it's just me. And that's where the Chroma key feature comes in. So let's scroll back over and select the Chroma key option. It's basically a silhouette with a transparent background icon. And you see here you have 4 options. You have none, red, green, or blue. Or you can just simply choose custom as an option, and you can long press on your background to pull that particular color out. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and just select green. And as you can see here, it took the green out, but it's still opaque. It's not transparent. So this is where you can go in along the bottom and adjust the color range. So I'm going to go ahead and use the scroll bar down below and just scroll from left to right to see if this option helps to take out that background. So it's gradually beginning to do that. This may not be the best option, but I'm going to see if this works for me without it taking away the edges of my head and my body, if you know what I mean. Maybe going to go over just a little bit more. I think that may do it, but let's go ahead and check that out and see if it works. So I'm going to hit the check symbol on the top right, and I'm going to go ahead and play this back. Yeah, that works. Cool. So as you can see, the Chroma key feature really works well. I'm actually going to adjust it so it actually makes sense. I'm going to double tap on my green screen video, and I'm going to go ahead and hit that scissor tool that I showed you earlier, because this is where I really need to be able to use that feature. And I'm going to trim it to there. And now that lines it up right at the beginning. So if I go ahead and play that back, we can see what it actually looks like. Hey everyone, Tim Brown, just shooting a green screen demo so that I can show you how I look when. Cool. That actually turned out pretty good. You rarely come across a video editor where the Chroma key feature really works that well, unless you are pretty much getting one of the more advanced video editors out there. This one pretty good. I didn't even have to make that many adjustments. I think the Chroma key came in pretty good. What do you think? I'm going to go ahead up to the menu here, because I think there are a few more options here that I think you would be interested in. Right next to the Chroma key option is transparency. So instead of the silhouette with the transparent background icon, the transparency is completely covered throughout, indicating that it's just mainly for transparency purposes, so I can make myself disappear. Next to the transparency icon is another clock icon, a slightly different shape. Here you can actually go in and change the speed of your video. So if I wanted to speak a lot faster, this little scroll bar along the top allows you to control the speed of your video. And then next to that is a double icon. That's pretty straightforward. Whenever you see that, it basically means that you can duplicate your clip. So if I pressed on that, I could duplicate my clip, which would add just another copy of my video down below, which I don't really want. So I'm going to check out of that and then undo that paste. And let's go back into editing mode once again, because there's another interesting icon right next to that. So in addition to the duplicate icon, there's another duplicate icon with an arrow. And this arrow basically allows you to duplicate a clip, but then place it on another layer. That's a pretty nice option. Really love that. Right next to that duplicate icon is a very funny little icon with a sort of squiggly arrow. If you press on that, you see it gives you the option to import or add another video. Nice option to have. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that and also get rid of this additional image that I have here on the timeline. I don't really want to. And scroll back over here and look at some more options. So there's next to that is an arrow pointing upwards. You select that, and what that does is it allows you to shift your layers around. So in this case, it just put the duck video above me rather than below me. So if I actually played that back, you'll see now that with the layers flipped around, I have the duck Tim Brown, playing over top of my face. Screen. Not really cool, but hey, you kind of get the idea. If I double tap on my layer once again, scroll back over, you now see there are other arrow options. So I can now take myself right back down to the bottom. So yeah, the app is pretty cool. You have a lot of really nice features here. You can have a lot of fun with this app. Clearly, there are a lot of features in here. There's a lot that you can do. Really nice app, MovieSpirit by Jacky Wu, who's the developer. Pretty nice app. I encourage you to check it out if you like video editors. My name is Tim Brown. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of my Apple Podcast. I recorded this entire episode using my iPad, so it's a little different than usual. I'm using my Sennheiser Clip Mic digital mic that I have plugged into my iPad for audio. So yeah, I'm kind of doing this on the road. You may hear a little bit of the train in the background too, so I apologize for that. But yeah, check out MovieSpirit. And check me out again, where for my next episode, I think I'm going to cover Chroma key apps for iOS.